Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. Your co-hosts, Jason Smith and Brian Bibbo, will inspire and teach you how to prosper in your mind, body, and spirit, not just your financial life. Joining forces with field experts, Jason and Brian are here to help you focus on what matters most in your life, living well.
Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. I'm Jason Smith, your host today, and I have a special guest. And this guest has actually personally made a big difference in my life. When I used to live very close by, directly across the street from his company, him and his team trained me, and I saw just tremendous results in working with them. And so I wanted to bring Jeff on today because he's got the foundational methodology of what they do is I think it's cutting edge and it's different than anything I had ever seen before. So I wanted to introduce him to all of you but let's start, Jeff, with you just kind of telling a little bit about your story, about how you got started in leading you to where you are today. And the other little thing I'd love you to do, Jeff, is what would your definition of holistic health be? Love to hear your take on that.
That's great. Yeah. Now I'll start from the very beginning. And for me, this journey of strength training all started for me at a very young age. I mean, I was 5 years old. I watched my mom suffer for 18 months with ovarian cancer. And I watched how she had to be strong to fight not only emotionally, mentally, and physically. You know, that was just a traumatic event and loss of strength for her. And then I had to watch my dad raise 3 young kids, me and my 2 older brothers, and then, support my family and fight for my mother as well. So I saw that fight for strength early on. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Easter weekend. My dad walked in the house. He sat me and my 2 older brothers down on the couch. And even though I was 5, I knew in my gut exactly what he was going to say. Mom's gone. My mom died at 37. And I watched, again, how she struggled and what cancer did to her body. And I didn't know it at the time, but a seed was planted in me to help people become the strongest versions of themselves in their own terms. And so fast forward, I got into college and I became an athletic trainer and a strength coach. I graduated from college and I worked in a physical therapy clinic as an outpatient physical therapy clinician because I thought my life's path was to become a physical therapist. But as I got into it, I got a little disenamored with it because, you have insurance limitations. People are given typically like 8 to 10 visits and then left to go on your own and do a home program. Most people are non-compliant. And I just thought there had to be a better way. And during that time in physical therapy, I stumbled upon a strength training methodology that was very different and the complete opposite of anything I'd ever heard. And it works on a biological model, which I'll talk about later. But so I took that strength training model and started implementing it with our patients. And we got tremendous results. So I left the physical therapy practice. I went back to Case Western Reserve University, where I went to undergraduate school. I went back there. I was the athletic trainer. I was a professor in the sports medicine program, and I was getting my master's at the medical school in exercise physiology. So I started implementing this protocol with myself, my wife, my friends, anybody that I could get my hands on, and then the athletes at Case. So I became the strength coach for a lot of the teams. We found tremendous results, and we started getting great results in a fraction of the time they would normally spend in the gym. And it was very therapeutic in nature as well. So I knew I was onto something. Then when I got my master's, I left school and then I've started this. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years now.
Wow. That's a great story. And I totally appreciate. And I wasn't aware of the story about your mom and how that can, plant those seeds so early on, the importance. Jeff, the strength, let's talk about strength training in general, right? Because I think that, actually, let me hear your definition of holistic health first. Let's do that. First.
My definition of holistic health is to take an all-encompassing approach. So exercise is one component, which we'll talk and we'll dive into that deep today, because I think it's the biggest missing component and misunderstood component, because people think they need to spend hours in the gym to get results. And we're here to prove that it does not have to be that way. So obviously exercise, primarily strength training, movement, cardiovascular benefit, that's exercise all in that bucket. But then you've got also sleep. And I think that's a hugely underrated and unlooked thing that most people don't understand. I used to pride myself and wear a badge of honor of getting like an average of 5 hours of sleep. Like I always said, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And then as I got older and I dived into the science, I'm like, oh my, I'm so silly with this. And as I started getting more and more sleep, in the last few years here, my energy is just boosted, and my productivity, my cognitive function, just everything. Sleep is so vital and people truly undervalue it. So exercise, we've got sleep, movement throughout the day, just moving. They say, sitting's the new smoking, right? So even if you can stand for a little bit during the day instead of sitting at a desk, like I'm sitting now, but I have a stand-up desk. It floats up and down. So if I'm not client facing or doing podcasts, I can stand and have more energy and just move throughout the day, or just taking little walks. It doesn't have to be intense. I tell my clients, if they have a desk job, every 45 to 50 minutes, get up, move. Research will show from a cognitive perspective, we can only truly highly focus on a single task for about 40 to 45 minutes. So you need to give yourself a mental break as well, but then also a physical break. Go walk, take a drink of water, do some breath work, meditation, whatever it is, but just move. So we've got strength, we've got exercise, we've got sleep, and we've got movement. And then obviously nutrition, right? At the end of the day, you cannot exercise a bad diet. We could have a whole nother podcast on all of these little buckets, right? We don't have time for that today. So nutrition is vital. I mean, food is thy medicine for sure. And then mindfulness, whether it's prayer or meditation or breath work, some type of facet of getting outside of the outside world and just getting into your body and into your mind itself and just calming things down. So I'm a huge proponent in prayer and meditation. It's part of my daily ritual. It's part of my daily routine. So those would be my buckets, if you will, from a holistic approach.
That's awesome. Jeff, you just teed up all our podcasts for the next year. So
there you go, man. I'm happy to help. Yeah, for sure.
No, that's great. And, so more specifically, what we'll talk about today is strength training in general. And we'll also talk about kind of this methodology that, that MaxStrength is all about, because I think it's just really fascinating and something that people need to hear about. But let's talk about strength training in general, right? Because there's cardio, there's yoga, there's strength training, there's different types of, exercise, right?
Yeah.
And I think people sometimes can even get overwhelmed of like, where do I start? What do I do? Which one's better for me? What's the benefits? Do I really need strength training? I'm not trying to like bulk up or be a bodybuilder. So wouldn't I just really do cardio? That maybe that's what, maybe my doctor says,
Right.
You might hear some of these things, talk to me about strength training and the importance of it.
Yeah, strength training, I think it's like the fountain of youth. It's the one thing that you can do. You don't have, and I'll explain today how you don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. It's a little bit of effort, yes, at the end of the day, but it changes so many things from a biological perspective, and we'll dive into all of those. At the end of the day, we all need strength training. And the reason being is after about the age of 30, we all suffer from what's called sarcopenia. That's the wasting away of muscle tissue and mass. And we lose muscle mass and strength at about a rate of 3 to 5% every decade after 30. And then when we get to 60, hormonal changes start to take place. Those are called epigenetic changes. And then that almost doubles. So we're all sitting here. If you don't use it, you lose it is the old adage. That's absolutely true. So muscular strength and adding muscle to your frame is vital for longevity and for the aging process for sure. So many functional benefits from it. Our clients experience increase in strength, which helps them to do their daily activities and function on their own. Increases in flexibility. When you go through a full range of motion on our machines and through the exercise, you increase flexibility, stability, and mobility around the joints. We can help with percentage of body fat and body composition. The more muscle you pack on your frame, the more calories you burn at rest. It's a metabolic cost. You become a fat burn machine throughout the day. So that's a great side effect. It's not primarily what we focus on is losing weight. We like to lose fat instead of lose muscle. Because when people lose weight they don't strength train, they typically lose an equal amount of fat and muscle, and that's not good. And all these people that are going on these medications now for the fat loss, don't get me wrong, they absolutely work, but you absolutely need to be under the guidance of a physician, because I know a lot of people that go too hard, too strong. But here's the thing that we find with clients who might be on those medications. When they strength train, they have a stimulus to tell the body to hold on to that expensive tissue of muscle mass or even build it. So now we're seeing them truly just shed fat and hold on to that muscle mass, where in the past, they would just drop both. And that's a side effect of those medications is loss of muscle mass and strength. And we don't see that at all. So help with body composition. The leaner you are, research will show, adding muscle to your frame helps with all-cause mortality. We can definitely prolong our life and quality of our life by strength training and having muscle onto our frame. Sustained fat loss, we just talked about. More energy, increase your energy levels, increase your better sleep. The harder we work from a muscular perspective and an energy perspective, the better we're going to sleep. Our clients report all the time, I sleep like a baby now that I've taxed my body, because we're typically as a society now taxing our mind all day long, and we're very stressed. But when we go to bed, our body's like, well, I really didn't do much physically. I just sat there all day. So why should I go to sleep? So it keeps us awake, right? So we get better sleep, improve functional ability, the ability to do just daily tasks, whether it's, get up off the floor or play with your grandchildren or go hike or do competitive athletic things as we age. Cardiovascular benefit, that's a huge benefit that we get the way that we do it. And people don't understand. They think that you have to get cardio, like steady state cardio, running, jogging, spinning, biking, things of that nature to improve your heart and your lungs. Sole job of your cardiovascular system is to carry blood, oxygen, and nutrition to a tissue, organ, muscle, cell. It's a transport system, so it moves things around, right? Yeah. Your muscular system is kind of like the engine in your car. When you rev the engine, the exhaust works harder. Well, that's your heart and your lungs. So if you make your muscles work harder, your heart and lungs have to work harder. So we get a profound effect at your cardiovascular system from our method of strength training. Bone loss prevention. We see clients all the time, especially females, help with osteoporosis. This program actually has some scientific background to it, was developed out of an osteoporosis study in the early 80s. University of Florida Medical School, Nautilus Corporation, the equipment manufacturer, and they studied osteoporotic women. Their hypothesis was high intensity, low force, which I'll explain later, strength training would profoundly improve bone density, which it does because muscle attaches to bone. And when you put that tensile force through the muscle and tension on it, it translates into increasing your bone. People think our bone, and it's just always stagnant. It's not. It's a living, breathing organism. It's constantly remodeling and changing. If it can decay, it can grow. So we see increases in bone density, increase in metabolism. Again, more muscle you have in your frame, more calories you burn at rest, increase in sugar tolerance. Insulin sensitivity. We can reverse type 2 diabetes. That is a lifestyle disease. Cholesterol, blood pressure, those things can all be stabilized as well. So all of those things can be profoundly impacted from high intensity strength training the way that we do it.
No, wow. That's awesome. That's a lot of, if you had to even simplify it further, Jeff, if there were, if they're the top 3 benefits strength training provides over, I think, a lot of our listeners are 50 plus, right? Probably 45 to, 70-year-olds, that's probably makes up the bulk of our listeners. And I think over and over, what you hear more and more from your doctors, just walk, just get out there and walk, right? Like I've heard it so many times. And a lot of people, that's all they do, right? They just go out there and walk and they think that's sufficient. And I guess my question for you is, if you had to simplify it to the top 3, what are the top 3 compelling reasons that strength training is going to bring to you in regards to overall health and longevity that you're not going to get from just walking?
Yeah. So the reason that doctors typically only prescribe walking is because you can't sue them for doing a daily activity. That's what we all go and walk, right? So if they tell you to go and strength train, and no knock on them, physicians, they specialize, right? They're in specialty care, in a general practitioner is, all encompassing. But at the end of the day, they have absolutely probably no formal training in exercise in medical school. Even most physical therapists don't have exercise prescription. It might be a day class, which I found out. It's just, so they don't know what to do and they don't know how to do it themselves. So how can you prescribe something when you don't know? They know the benefits and they know all the tons and tons of research to support strength training profoundly improves the quality of your health, right? And so getting to your question, I would say, increase strength, because as we age, we need to be able to functionally do the things we want to do, whether it's get up off the floor, travel. As we age, we lose that muscle mass. So we want to keep that strength so we can functionally do daily activities or recreational sports. I just mentioned the cardiovascular benefit. It's profound from a strength training perspective to make your muscles work harder so your heart and lungs have to work harder. And then just improve your overall biomarkers, meaning, and now that's a broad term, but biomarkers meaning when you go to the doctor, hopefully for your annual physical, and they take that blood draw and they look at all of those things, blood pressure, cholesterol, your glucose levels, testosterone, cortisol level, all of those things can profoundly be impacted through high intensity strength training. So even though there's a lot of those things, that change is profound. So that would be my top 3.
Awesome. That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about just what you do. So this methodology, right, that I experienced in working with you and your company, very different, right? 20-minute workouts. You don't even allow really, from what I understood, at least, us to do more than 2 a week. Yeah. And so, which I just thought was so fascinating, because I've strength trained my whole life, since middle school, and I still do today. And I would typically like a 5 day a week, right? And at minimum three, even going five. And then I started working with you and they're like, no more than two. And usually I was doing hour workouts and you're telling me 20 minutes. And so
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I'm always asking the question, what's the least amount of time I can spend exercising and get the most profound result, right? So it's your ROI, it's your return on your investment. And by the way, our clientele are your clientele. They're typically 45 and above as well. And we got a 98-year-old. So we typically tailor to high-level executives or people that have built their wealth but kind of let their health suffer. They don't want to go to a traditional gym. We're kind of the anti-gym. I mean, this is what I wear to work. It's a shirt and tie. We dress professional, act professional. So it's different from that perspective from the setting. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But from an exercise perspective and prescription, and I say prescription because we prescribe exercise just like a doctor prescribes medication. And when a doctor prescribes medication, they'll use what we call a minimum effective dose. So a minimum effective dose means if I have, let's say, for example, high blood pressure, they're going to give me a blood pressure medication that's just the specific dose to change the outcome that I want, lower my blood pressure. Too much of that drug is going to be toxic or have an adverse effect. Ultimately, the worst case scenario will kill you. Not enough doesn't do anything. So pharmaceutical companies bank their livelihood on this model of minimum effective dose. They have to dial it in. So it's the intensity of that drug that dictates the change in the body. Same thing with exercise. It's the intensity of the exercise that dictates change in the body. So we can go into the gym hours on end, multiple days a week, and we can either work for a prolonged period of time, spinning our wheels, which most people do, or shorten that time, but increase the intensity. When you work for a prolonged period of time, your intensity level has to be low because there's an inverse relationship between the two. You can't work out for hours on end with a high level of intensity. We only have so much energy to expend. So I tell my clients, when you come in, you're going to have a full tank of gas, energy, and strength. Our sole goal is to momentarily weaken you as best we can. That's the stimulus that creates change. We call that an inroad that allows the body to change and adapt once you walk out the door. So that's the specific dose that we give is 20 minutes of high intensity. That's the specific medicine, if you will. The frequency of the drug, maybe it's once a day, maybe it's twice a day, maybe it's 3 times a week. So frequency is important too, because there's a half-life to a drug, meaning the time that it takes to get out of your system. Well, when we strength train, we decrease the level of energy and we break down the muscular strength. All we do is break down muscle fibers. So now we want it to recover. The recovery period is when we actually change. That's when all those benefits that I just talked about from a hormonal level and from a functional level change. So we increase strength, we increase cardiovascular benefit. If we empty that gas tank and we don't allow it to fully recover before it's level, then we're always in a deficit. So we want to tax the system as a whole, total body workout, 20, 25 minutes, high intensity, but low force. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then allow it to recover and change. So 2 to 3 days of rest, recovery, move, be active, do the other things, get sleep, pay attention to what you put in your mouth, be mindful, move around, right? Bring you back, repeat that process. That's why we only train at most to twice a week. All of the research will show it's the intensity that dictates change. You need adequate recovery for the body to change and adapt, then bring it back and repeat that process. So I'll use another analogy that might hit home with some people as far as the intensity of the exercise goes and how we can get great results in only 20 minutes twice a week without breaking a sweat, which we don't. We keep the temperature controlled. It's a biological model. Your body is just like your car. If your car overheats, it doesn't run as well. Same thing with our bodies. So we want to keep the temperature at 67 degrees Fahrenheit. We have fans throughout the studio. Clients don't sweat when they train with us. The bonus, though, they can come in, train, go right back to their busy day. Don't have to worry about showering or grooming. Back to the analogy, though. So let's say my goal was to get the world's best suntan, which I don't advocate for health reasons, but we'll use it for today's example, right? We know from all the research, it's the UV radiation in the sun that's coming down that reddens the skin, that increases melanin, right? That being said, if the UV radiation is higher, then I have a better chance of getting a suntan. So if I could go on a sunny day in Cleveland in July, where the UV radiation is most likely higher than like today in December, I have a better chance of getting a suntan. So the UV radiation increases the chance of reddening the skin. Or I could take that same UV radiation, bottle it up into a bulb in a tanning bed, and within 6 to 7 minutes, a fraction of the time sitting outside, I get the same or a better result. What changed? We increase the intensity of that UV radiation. So that's what we do at MaxStrength Fitness. We increase the intensity of the exercise, allow for recovery, allow the body, which is our body, to adaptively change. We're not just reddening skin, we're increasing all those benefits. So that's an analogy I like to use with people as far as intensity versus volume.
That's good. Yeah, that makes total sense. And I can say from experience that, you also, it's really working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And you need to be mentally prepared to go in there because you're gonna work hard. You're gonna work
Yeah.
hard for a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of always knowing the light at the tunnel is it's like
Sure.
only 20, 25 minutes, but
Yeah.
you got to be ready. You got to be, and I can see why you're probably a lot of your clients are almost like type A personalities, right? Business owners, CEOs, successful people that maybe have gotten almost really focused on their career for a period of time.
Yeah.
And now they're like, whoa, I really need to focus on my health, but I don't have time. Here's a way to do it, and slot it in there, and a proven way to do it.
Especially for high level CEOs or anybody in a leadership position. If you're not dedicated, the one thing I tell leaders is people that lead a company, lead a congregation, a team, a family, the one thing, if you want to really lead strong by, exercise consistently, because that shows that you have at least that dedication to your overall health and fitness. And the leader, the group, whatever you're leading, they'll only rise to the level of the leader. So if the leader's out of shape, has medical issues, how can they expect their team to perform at a higher level? And when you change your body and your exercise and you strength train, it profoundly improves all the other areas of your life. It has a whole cascading snowball effect, if you will. So that's what we work with our CEOs. Work hard in the gym, right? And again, we tailor it to each individual's level. So we meet you where you're at, and then at your pace, we'll incrementally change it. Like my 98-year-old doesn't work as intently or as intensely as my 50-year-old high-level executive, right? So we tailor it to the individual. But the intensity the 98-year-old experiences is far above and beyond what they're currently doing or what they've done in the past. And that's another physiological model called the overload principle in physiology. We need to experience a stimulus above and beyond what we're used to in order to change and adapt. And that's where most people go in the gym, hours on end, multiple days a week. They're doing the same thing. I mean, going to the gym and see the people that have been there for 3-5 years, they look the same. A lot of them, because they just spin their wheels. And as soon as it gets harder, challenging, or discomforting, or it's burning, they stop. That's when they need to push. And that's where we come in as a trusted advisor and guidance of an expert to have the client stay calm, stay controlled, because when shiitake hits the fan, you're going to want to fight or flight. You're going to want to run or freeze or stop. That's where we help them with a breathing technique. We help them stay calm, and we internalize rather than externalize, and we guide them through that process. So that's why having a trusted advisor is beneficial.
I learned so much, Jeff, about my own breathing that I still apply today on every workout I do. Just about, sometimes, I have different trainers online or whatever, and, I'll go ultra slow, right? And very intentional. And they'll say, okay, do whatever it is till failure, right? They'll say, go ahead and do it to failure. Well, when I get to failure, I'll hold, right? For a period of time where I'm just almost trembling. So I've applied, I learned so much. I mean, I learned so much from working with you guys. And I also loved, you'd give the educational brochures. So we were always continuing to learn along the way as we came in and experienced the benefits. The one thing I did want you to talk about for anybody who's listening and is like, whoa, this sounds scary, right? It's really intense.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be mentally prepared. This sounds a little bit scary. Talk to me about preventative, injuries, right? How injury prevention and, in case somebody's worried a little bit about that when they hear about this.
So let me explain more of our protocol, if you will, because it does sound scary. It's high intensity, but I keep saying it's low force. So low force meaning we lift the weights in about 8 to 10 seconds and we lower them at that speed. We want tension on the muscle the entire time. It robs the body momentum and it takes all the stress off the joints. So not as an efficient, effective, but it is the safest thing that we can do for our joints themselves, because all the muscles surround the joint. So as your cartilage starts to wear away in your knees and you might need a knee replacement, we kick that can down the road with a lot of our clients because we tremendously increase the strength around the joint. So we can train hip replacements, knee replacements, cages, fusions of the spine, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, dementia. All of those clients, like I said, we meet them where they're at, and then at their pace, we take them where they go. So this is the safest modality possible. Whereas the opposite of us would be a high intensity, but high force, meaning ballistic, lunge and heave, a lot of stress on the joints, a lot of momentum to move the weight rather than the musculature. So we slow things way down, and then we bring the intensity up. And to your point of the breathing, we want to avoid what we call a Valsalva sink. It's a breath holding technique. And when you hold your breath like that, no blood gets the right side of your heart. Blood pressure can spike up to 3 to 4 times its normal rate. So that's not good. So we encourage elevated breathing. The harder it gets, the more you breathe. But for anybody starting out with strength training, anything, if you're not doing anything, anything will be advantageous in the beginning. But that's where that overload principle comes in, where you have to slowly manipulate some variable. It doesn't mean just lifting more weights all the time. So that's where a trusted advisor like us comes in. And the beauty for our clients, they don't have to think. They just walk through the door. The hardest part for them is walking in the door. We teach them how to move, teach them how to breathe, teach them how to properly load your musculature, take them to fatigue or failure, depending on their results that they need, and then let them go back out the door, deal with their busy day, and then we come back. And that's, we take that holistic approach because, anybody wants to jump on our email list, they can go to MaxStrengthFitness.com and, subscribe. We do every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. We send out an educational email, and it's typically not about exercise. It's about those other buckets that we talked about earlier, because I want to educate and inspire my clients along that journey as they go.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think that, I think the other thing that maybe some people are thinking about, and I know I was even one where I had a shoulder injury. I was working with a trainer years ago, and they kind of, just didn't, whatever. They had me do something that messed up my lower back a little bit. So,
Right.
I have a couple of these kind of nagging, injuries, elbow, whatever.
Yeah.
And I know I was a little bit hesitant initially, like, wow, like this is going to be, what's this going to do to these injuries of mine, or how are they going to work around these? But you absolutely did. Maybe you could address that a little bit.
Yeah. So with my background in physical therapy and sports medicine, we take that very clinical approach. So when we do an initial consultation with a client, we talk about their medical history, talks about their aches and pains. And then we say it's a shoulder impingement. We don't need to address the shoulder itself, but I take a whole approach when I look from a therapeutic perspective, meaning I'm going to address the entire body as a whole, the part that we're looking at, and then the other whole is above and beyond that, because things work in synergy together. And we can modify the routine based on whatever we need. So we can do static holds, we can do time static contractions where you're not even moving in the machines. And our machines are very specific. They have low friction, which allows us to move at those slower paces. And they track what we call muscle joint function, meaning they're going to move in movement patterns that are going to mimic in your daily life. So we have a spinal rehab machine that truly isolates your low back musculature, your lumbar spine, which is truly unique than most people. Again, our machines having the low friction, crux of any physical therapy program is to increase your strength, your stability, mobility, and flexibility around the joint, decrease your pain, increase your range of motion. And that's what we do all day, every day. So we are a great adjunct to post-therapy. So we work with a lot of chiropractors, work with a lot of massage therapists, a lot of physical therapists. When they're discharged from that, like I said, they're typically left to go on their own. That's where we come in to really, truly build upon what they've started to decrease their pain and get them back mobility. Then we help for strength for longevity. And we do it in a very efficient, effective, but again, most importantly, safe manner.
Awesome. Thanks for addressing that. How about for those that maybe aren't as, maybe they're elsewhere. We have offices in Florida as well as Seattle, and we're expanding, and there's people all over northeastern Ohio, but sometimes it's like, you have locations Westlake, Strongsville, and
Willoughby.
And Willoughby, right?
Yeah.
But so for those that it's a little bit further of a drive,
yeah, sure. We have an option. Yeah,
right?
We do. So we have our 3 corporate studios, like you mentioned, Westlake, Willoughby, and Strongsville, and we just launched our franchise this year. So we'll be opening up our first franchisee in Niceville, Florida, in the Panhandle, and then we have many in the pipeline. So we're taking the show nationally with our brick and mortar studios. But when we were forced to be shut down during the pandemic, if you'd have told me we'd become a virtual training studio, I thought you were crazy, because we need our fancy equipment in our environment and temperature controlled and all this other stuff, but we were forced to go that way. If you then take the principles of our high intensity, low force model, you can do it without our fancy equipment. It's actually harder for us as the trainer, because we have to really we can come like this by a Zoom or FaceTime. Right. And we can come into your living room, your office, wherever you're at in the world, and we can give you an exercise band, a yoga block. All you need is a chair and a spot on the wall or the floor. And we can do a profound workout within 20, 25 minutes. Because again, we're going to apply the principle of high intensity, but still low force. So we just don't have our fancy equipment, which makes it, again, harder on us, but we can get profound results in that way. We went 100% virtual when we were shut down for 12 weeks. We retained 80% of our clients at that time, which was great. And then when we came back, everybody came back in the studio, but we still have about 10 to 12% of our clients, they just prefer virtual. And we have a lot of snowbirds. So people go south or go west from Ohio, right? And instead of them leaving on their own or going to do something else, we simply do virtual training with them. And it works profoundly. So anywhere in the world, maybe minus time zones when we're asleep, we can come in and help you with your health and fitness profoundly in a fraction of time, just like we do in studio.
That's great. And Jeff, I want to touch on a couple of things you said too that resonated with me. As you know, I'm a CEO and a leader of companies, but also my most important job is the leader of my family, right? And one of the reasons I'm dedicated to strength training is because I want my family to see a strong leader. I want to lead by example. I want them to, treat health as a priority as my kids grow, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure some of the listeners, even leader of your family, it might be your grandkids that you want to create that kind of, positive image and role model that you can lead by example. So I think that really resonated when you actually made the comment of like CEO or of your family too. I think you're spot on with that. The other thing that
I'll interject there because our kids, we think they don't pay attention, but they're very perceptive. So if they see mom and dad taking care of their health by eating well, by getting enough sleep, by, working diligently and building their wealth, but also then taking care of their health first and foremost, especially in today's society where kids are going to be on phones and screens and everything. And we're not running out and playing with the kids until the lights come on. We're always inside our rooms or whatever it is. It's vital that those kids see us taking that lead so that they can lead that. They might not understand it at that moment, but I guarantee you, think about a moment in time where you saw your parents do something when you were younger, and all of a sudden as an adult, you're like, oh, wow, they were onto something there. And now all of a sudden you're mimicking what they did, right? Because it kind of resonated with you as you got a little bit older and a little bit more wiser. So that definitely happens for sure.
I mean, you're dead on too. If you really think about, even the listeners, think about yourself. Think about whether it's you have young kids or whether you have young grandkids. You probably, likely you have one of the two, right?
Sure.
And when the opportunity presents itself, when they're out there outside playing and running hard, do you gotta go out there and run with them? Do you go out there and actually actively participate in playing with them? Or do you not have the energy, or do you not have the confidence or the strength? And those are some things you got to ask yourself. And it is that important to you? Because if it is, then, you got to take action. Right. And so go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. We have countless, we've been doing this for almost 20 years. We have countless testimonies of clients that, they have most of our clients, like I said, 15 above. So they do have grandchildren. They want to be able to get on the floor and crawl around with their newborns. They want to be able to, go to Billy's game and be able to throw the football around with them. They want to be able to go on vacation, hike, and do these other things. Instead of sitting back when everybody else is doing active things, they want to be able to participate in those things. And that's where we can guarantee the improvement of the quality of their life. I don't guarantee quantity, but at the end of the day, we're only given so much time on this earth. So why not maximize what we're able to do in that amount of time? And strength training is just profound. I firmly believe I was put on this earth by God to help people become the strongest versions of themselves in all facets of life. And so that's my life's mission. And that's why we're franchising. That's why we're expanding, because I just want to help as many people as possible so they don't have to suffer. So if they, God forbid, come on an illness like my mom or something, they have the strength. And we see that all the time. Unfortunately, we have clients that are stricken with various forms of cancer or illness or autoimmune disease, especially during COVID. The stronger people, if they got COVID, they were profoundly less affected by it than those who were obese or out of shape or had other pre-existing conditions. So strength helps in so many facets of life.
No doubt. No doubt. And, it's funny, Jeff, you and I have a lot in common in that regards around my passion for holistic wealth management. And similar, and years ago, I was able to, in essence, franchise through a, model, and we have offices all around the country. That's a separate business. But congratulations. I know you've been talking about this for a few years now. So this is exciting.
Yeah, life throws some curveballs at you. We were set and ready to franchise, and then COVID hit. So we had to shut down. We had to kind of re-scramble. And then once we opened back up, then we got our feet on the ground. And then I had, the FDD in hand. That's the legal document. You have to have the franchise disclosure document. We were ready to go, ready to open up our franchise. And then, God had other plans, and he took my wife. So unexpectedly, life has come full circle for me. I now experience raising 3 girls instead of 3 boys like my dad did. I can lean on him and my faith to get me through those times. But then, yeah, finally last year we were able to get everything regroup and now launch it. And my why and my purpose is more driven than ever. One, to support my kids, but to make my wife proud and to make my mom proud and to help people just improve the quality of their life so that they can have the effect on their kids and their grandchildren, their team, congregation, their leadership, whatever that they're leading. Because at the end of the day, we're all leading somebody. And if we're not leading somebody else, we're leading ourselves. So why not take care of you first and foremost, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing today,
Yeah,
Jeff.
my pleasure.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for doing what you're doing. You're making a big difference.
Thank you.
I really hope the listeners do something, take action, look at strength training, check out MaxStrength. Do you see MaxStrength Fitness?
Yeah, so we always offer a free initial consultation and workout and 2 free sessions. Either it's in person or virtual. They can go to MaxStrengthFitness.com. They can request that right online. We'll get a hold with them within 24 hours. We'll set up that consultation, go through their medical history, do a very prescriptive consultative. Again, we're going to act like doctors. That's what we do. And so then we're going to prescribe that exercise component and treat you fairly and treat you on the way.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks again, Jeff, for being
my pleasure.
here.
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you to the listeners for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please call 456-833-7000. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family.
Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors and SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. J.L. Smith Wealth and Tax Planning and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through Advisor DBA are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors including, but not limited to, age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.